So I'm going to go through here and add some shadows and some highlights to our flat colors. I'm just saving this as a new document just so I can have this as a reference later on. But it is a good thing just to kind of save these and make sure that you're saving these things in places where you can find them. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a new layer, and I'm going to call this one Shadows. And then we're going to reduce the opacity of our base layer, and we're going to look for the areas where shadows are most prevalent in our base image. So I'll bring that base image back up to visibility. I'm going to keep the other features like the eyes and the mouth and everything like that, but I do want to be able to see this. So I'm just going to find different shadows here that we can kind of go through, and as I go through, I'll just kind of mention certain techniques that might be helpful. There's really not a whole lot to this. The idea is mostly just looking for anywhere that's a little bit darker than the skin, but not quite as dark as the folds and creases of skin that we've used with our blacks. One thing you may note is the sort of whip-like, tendril-like look I'm giving most of the shadows. And once again, I'm just looking for areas that are just a little bit darker than the rest of the face. So once we have all that done, what we want to do now is just decide what the color is going to be. And I'm also reducing the opacity of some of the shadows that are covering up parts of the features of the face, like the mouth and the eyes. So notice there were a couple of shadows that were hanging out beneath or on top of one of the bigger shadows. I added those in just to make sure there's a little bit of a definition to the face, like right beneath the nose and little creases of the mouth here. We want to make sure we can still see our lips, and we're still keeping things grayscale just to make sure that we're able to just mostly focus in on light and not focus so much on color. Alright, so if you made a mistake like I did and you didn't put your stuff on a different layer, which I contend is pretty important, you can click on one of these and just go to Select and go to Same and click on Fill Color, and that'll give you the opportunity to just Control X and cut them, and then Control F on a new layer and paste them in place on a new layer. So Control V is just paste them wherever, and then Control F is paste them the same place they were, the same coordinates they were. Okay, so with that done, I'll make a new layer and call this one Highlights. And highlights are just what they say they are. In this case, we're looking for any areas of the face where the highlights have, where the light has struck the skin. And I'll probably speed through this as well. So we'll watch this. I'll just once again reduce the opacity here, and I'll just start drawing in areas of the face that have some light hits on them. So once again with the pen tool, we're just going through with no fill color and a pretty visible stroke color, looking for areas where there are any light hits. In this case, these are a little more round and less tendrily, and we don't want to forget there's a light hit on the neck as well as on the little piece of collarbone we can see there poking out from the shirt. With that done, just select all of your highlights, make them slightly lighter than the rest of your skin, and you can reduce the opacity a little bit if you want the effect to be lessened. It depends on, once again, the individual designer's preference. In this case, once again, you might see things that I don't see. I might be seeing things that you're just not quite sure. Just sort of use your best judgment, and when you're done, you can take away the background layer and just save this. Once again, make sure you save your progress, and then you can export it as a JPEG using the Export for Screens option. So once again, File, Export for Screens, and make sure that you call the artboard something different, like, say, for instance, Vector Illustration, Shadows and Highlights. Okay, and you'll see this, and this is what you will import to D2L. So you can kind of see the progression there. You get blacks, flats, and then shadows and highlights. Very cool. See you in class.